What is up YouTube and welcome back to the channel. Today I bring you the 2021 Killing It Again Sportage EX. Is it the Sportage or the Sportage? That is a really good question. And who decides that? Is it the manufacturers that place the ads for us to know that it's a Sportage or a Sportage? Or is it us, the people, that decide based on where we live? Always a good question and always want to know. But regardless, this Sportage has shown its age because this is the last Kia to be redesigned. Now we have done the Seltos and we have done the Sorento. And if you haven't watched those videos, well, you know where to go to watch them. And speaking of that, make sure you guys subscribe because our subscriber rate is not climbing as much as we'd like. So on the front of this vehicle, what do we have? We have the Tiger Nose grille, which is consistent with Kia, but on the Seltos, if you guys remember, it would actually flow into the bumper, and we'll probably see that in the new Sportage. But what other features does it have? This specific one has a similar color as we have had in the Stinger, but the overall design is different because this still sort of wedges out like that. And if you look at the Seltos and you look from overhead, it's a lot more circular. This sort of slides up just like the Porsche products because this, at the time when it was designed, was intended to actually get a lower drag coefficient than Porsche products. That's why it looks really similar to a Cayenne or a Macan. Now, what do you guys think? I think it does. And another interesting point here is that these are actually functional front air curtain, and what they do is they're for the brakes. They actually slide in and go up and over, and there is a cutout in the back that you can see, so they are functional, which is kind of cool. Something really weird though is they do have LED headlights, but what are those? And if we talk about headlight design, if you look at the Seltos, you've got lots of incremental LEDs versus this is just one straight projector. Now, what do we get under the hood of this Sportage? Well, this is a 2.4 liter motor that makes 181 horsepower and 175 foot-pounds of torque. Now, you can get the SX Turbo that makes about 240 horsepower or 260 foot-pounds of torque, but that's not what this is. This is the 181 horsepower EX model. Now, I really like how Kia has this filter that you can open up and just replace yourself. And I reviewed this in the other Kias that we've had, and it's just a really nice feature that you can do something yourself, that they allow you to do something yourself. That is a really, really cool piece. And to me, that brings the closeness with your vehicle when you can just do something really small and easy. And again, this is a 6-speed transmission if you want to know about transmission specs. And with that 6-speed transmission, this thing will propel from 0 to 60 in about 7.9 seconds. It's not the fastest thing in the world, so I'm excited to take this thing on a drive to see actually how fast or slow it responds to my foot. Now, this thing does have 18-inch dark wheels because this is the Nightfall edition, so it has all the black stuff. So as you can see, it's got the black roof rails, it's got the black wheels, it's got the black trim. So it's got a lot of black pieces on the front and back. So speaking of the back, let's check it out. So some people wonder why we review cars that are on their last model year, and the reason being is for two reasons. The first one, when we get the new one, we know what to expect in terms of what the differences were, and the ones that are going to buy this thing also want to know what this is like to drive today at the last year that they make it. So twofold. So if you guys weren't old enough to remember what the original Sportage or Sportage looked like, well, it did not look this pretty. This is a very good looking rear end. The front, questionable, but the back, they did a really good job on how clean it looks. So one of the biggest knocks on the Sportage is where the indicators are. You see, they're really, really low. And that for a lot of people is hard to sort of grasp because in foggy situations, it's really good because it's nice and low. But the problem is that habitually, or people, what they're used to, is that they usually look over here. They don't look down there. So it's kind of odd. Now, the cool part about this is that there's no fake exhaust. These are actually real exhaust. Underneath here, it's not fake exhaust like the Seltos. And they also have a nice little piece that wraps all around here on the taillight. Now, this doesn't illuminate. That illuminates as a third brake light. In my opinion, they should have made all this illuminate, but hey, I didn't design it, and this is them last year. My opinion does not count. But there's a cool piece, and it's right here. The fact that it's powered. That is nice to have. Now, tape measure time. How much distance do we have from the back of the seat and we've got 34.5 inches. Now, the back seats of this Sportage does not slide backwards and forwards. It does, however, tilt backwards and forwards, and I'll show you in the back seat because it actually has a really good tilt angle. So let's go back there and take a look. But before we jump in the back, I want to show you this does have sort of a dual floor rear cargo space where it has two sections that you can pull this out, slide it underneath, and it drops. And because this thing doesn't have a full tire, it does have something called a tire mobility kit in case you do get a flat. All right, so I'm in the 2021 Kia Sportage, and first things first, when I open the door, if you notice, this is a very, very large back door window. This is a huge window, and sitting back here, I feel like this vehicle is massive. That is because most SUVs have this glass behind me as a design feature, but this specific one actually has the window and it here, and it's large. So interesting feature to find out. But look at these back seats. Now let me go as far back as possible. That is the first step, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different increments that I can move this seat to make myself more comfortable. Now there is not heated seats in this specific one, but there is obviously a center armrest where you can put your drinks. Interestingly enough, they actually have put the third seat belt, or the center seat belt, up on the roof that slides right back in here. Interesting. All right, so the inside of the Sportage is very similar to some of the new modern Kias. They have integrated some of those pieces in. Here's an example, the steering wheel. The steering wheel is from a brand new Kia. The seats, very similar to a brand new Kia. This doesn't have ventilated seats. It does have heated seats, but it has some interesting design cues. One is, for example, it's designed towards me. By looking at the center console here, this is shifted towards me. Even interestingly enough, there's no actually handle here. There's a handle here and a handle up here. But check the passenger side. There is a grab handle on the door itself. Pretty interesting. You can get ventilated seats in this thing, and like I mentioned, you can't tow with the Seltos, but you can tow 2,000 pounds with this. And as you can see here, this does have a panoramic sunroof that you cannot get in the Seltos. This, however, only has an 8-inch screen, and you cannot get a 10.25 screen like you can get in some of the new modern Kias, which I'm sure they'll have in next year's model. So that's kind of interesting to know. Everything else is pretty similar. It's very basic as far as climate controls go, but the cool thing about Kia is it does have physical buttons, which are sort of a lost art in today's world. So something to consider. And it does have some cool features like wireless charging. So you can take the phone, slide it in here and drop it. Now it is a very small space, so an iPhone 12 Max will not fit. An iPhone 12 will fit or lower. I also lied, it does actually fit an iPhone 12 Max in the charging, but just barely, like it's super tight. Now, as far as the screen goes, let's take a look and go deep into the screen. And by diving in, I mean Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, because this is where I would use this screen for. Nothing really else to offer in the screen except for those two items. So if I hit Apple CarPlay, voila, you have all your data. I want to touch on 3 other features. One is the drive modes. You do have normal, eco, and sport, which is a singular button down here. It also does have all-wheel drive lock, which is a nice piece to have on something of this caliber. And the other pieces like Kia has is all your blind spot indicator and lane hold or lane centering, which this one does have, which is kind of cool to have, and we'll go over that on the drive. But one of the biggest updates to this Sportage is the key. This has the new generation key right there. Nice to keep it consistent. So I'm driving the 2021 Kia Sportage, and Kia told me that I have to drive this car in sport because otherwise, well, they said it makes a difference. So we are in sport now, and let's feel this thing out. Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. So a couple things to talk about. There is a lot of newness in this. So the steering wheel is the new Kia. It reminds me of all the newer Kia stuff I've driven. It doesn't have the lightness that the new Kias have, but yeah, it's close. Remember, this is the last of the Mohicans, but it does have some new stuff, like it has LEDs on the inside, which is kind of nice. They're not cheapy halogens, but it does have some oldness in it. It has 2 cigarette lighter ports here, which is sort of useless because not much uses cigarette lighters anymore. Let's take this left corner here, fairly hard, and on the throttle. All right. So this is not, you know, like I can let go of my hands and just look at the camera and talk while my foot's on the, oh, it's telling me that I'm off the lane a little bit. So it does have some tech. It does have blind spot indicator. It does have rear cross traffic alert. So besides the seat being very short for my legs, and again, because I'm shorter than 99.97% of the population, these seats are tight. They're not long. They don't really have long legs. So anybody with some tall legs will probably find this to be a little bit too short. So I'm not sure what that reasoning was. Maybe they just designed this seat around short people, but yeah. But the best feature of this SUV, hands down, is the automatic trunk. That you can open it and close it from inside the vehicle. Opening it, yes, but closing it is a big one. And when you do that, the four ways flash and you hear a little beeping audible noise. So that is kind of cool. That to me is probably one of the best features of this thing, that you can open and close the trunk, because that is the closest you're gonna get to a minivan. And people who are done with their kids and they just want an SUV that's sort of economical, has some space, fairly decent on power, that's who it's going to fit, right? And they want to have that feature of the trunk being able to open and close. And it does offer you that tech, as I mentioned, wireless charging, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Obviously, you got to plug it in. It's not wireless. All right, so we're going to give it one more go here. Foot to the ground. Let's go. We'll get there. It's actually not that bad. I'm kidding. It's not that bad. It's fairly decent. 8 seconds 0 to 100, feels that way, doesn't feel any faster. But if you're not a speed racer and you just want someone to fit the kids and yourself and life for a decent price, you know. So man, it's just not easy to do these reviews. These reviews are probably one of the harder ones to do. Like, doing a Stinger is easy for me. It's so easy because there's excitement, there's emotion, I can show you how to drive, the feel. These, like, you know, daily sort of SUVs that are just fit the bill, tick all the boxes, they're not easy because it's hard to find something that's exciting. Yeah, it's got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, wireless charging, it's got all the tech that you need, you know, basic tech you need. It's got good visibility, it's smooth, seats are, man, not the best, shifters, basic, everything's kind of basic, you know, not the easiest to do. So, sorry, just can't give you the emotion you need, that I need, that we need. Yeah, here we are, Kia Sportage, just does everything okay. The end. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time on something a little bit more exciting.